From the Mapleview Animal Hospital studios, this is the WHTC Morning News with Gary Stevens and Peg McNichol on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
Welcome back to the WHTC Morning News for this Tuesday, July 14th. Tuesday mornings, we have the opportunity to chat with U.S. House Representative Fred Upton of St. Joseph. And I thought you might be in Washington today, Fred, but you join us via the Zoom connection from your base in St. Joe's. Good morning.
You recognize my backdrop. Yeah, this is my porch. We don't have votes this week. Actually, I thought about going back. I am, as you know, the top Republican on the Energy Subcommittee. We have the Secretary of Energy testifying today, but it will be a virtual hearing. He's in Washington, so he'll be present. A couple of my colleagues will be there, but most of us will be scattered from around the country. We have a virtual markup tomorrow as well. Of course, a markup is when you actually take the bill and you offer amendments. I think there's about 15 or 20 bills that we're going to mark up in full committee tomorrow. So that'll be an all-day event. 54 members on our committee. I'm told that most of the bills are non-controversial. They'll be bipartisan, which is a good thing. But because we don't have recorded votes on the House floor, I decided that I would do it from here, from home. So I'll be making sure my little laptop is charged up, ready to go. But next week we have votes all week long, Monday to Friday. So I will be doing this from my kitchen, and actually we're going to do it an hour earlier live next Tuesday.
Sounds good, and we'll make arrangements along those lines. Real quick, you mentioned the Secretary of Energy speaking. Will he address the situation involving Keystone? I believe Keystone's got some issues right now. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm sure that he will. So Denny Brulette, he is the Secretary of Energy. He's actually a former staffer on the Energy and Commerce Committee. So yet another guy who's done well. We know him well. Both sides of the aisle, has a very good reputation. He'll be prepared to take questions. I spoke to him yesterday at some length. I know that he's talked to many of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. I'm sure that he'll be talking about pipeline safety, pipeline decisions, as well as our energy supply, particularly with COVID, maybe a little bit about their budget. He's actually going to be in Michigan tomorrow. I saw on, I think it was M Live, that he's going to be touring the GM facility there. He's a Michigan guy. I mean, he is. He told me that he often comes to vacation actually in St. Joe almost every year. But this year his son is a little bit older. I guess he's down south, so he's going to go there. But I suspect that he'll be to Michigan a number of times, and he's been a good friend and very well respected.
Fred Upton, a couple of notable figures have passed the scene. One locally, one of the Padnoses has passed, and Matty Maroon, the man that owns the Ambassador Bridge. Your experiences, if you have any, with those two gentlemen?
Well, I never had really any interaction with Matty Maroon. I saw that yesterday online. Very involved in trade with Canada, that's for sure. I didn't really know him. The Padnos family has been a wonderful family in every respect. Real entrepreneurs. I know all of the family members. We all grieve with them with their loss. They made a difference, particularly here in West Michigan, in so many different ways. And I know this is a tough time for them. It is for anyone who loses somebody, that's for sure.
It's like one of the titans in our area, in the Holland area, Mr. Padnos and the Louis Padnos set up, when Mr. Hayworth passed away a few years ago as well. These are titans of our area.
Well, that's right. And I can remember when I first ran for Congress, I actually represented much of Holland. I don't represent any of Ottawa County today, but our district went all the way up to Grand Haven. The Padnos family was very helpful to me and really stepped up and supported me in all of my races. And I've appreciated their input, but more importantly, their civic responsibilities to folks here in West Michigan. They have been an integral part of improving the quality of life for everybody.
Peg McNichol has a question from the newsroom.
Just a quick question, because I do find this fascinating in contrasting. I'm from Detroit, so I'm a little more familiar with Matty Maroon, and what he was all about. But just, I found it very interesting thinking about these two guys, and in particular, Mr. Padnos. What leadership quality do you think he embodies that is part of his legacy?
He was genuine, very genuine. He was thoughtful. He looked at you in the eye. He wanted he didn't care about party labels. I know, I know he split his ticket for sure. That's not important as it relates to me, but people could trust him. His word was his bond. He was thoughtful. He worked hard. He wanted to provide people a decent job. And, he cared about the environment, which is a big issue. I mean, recycling, remember back in the, I met him in the 80s, but back in the 70s, recycling, renewable energy wasn't a big cause. It was always a cause for him. And when you think about the many decades of what his family has done, to be able to recycle, how many, gajillion tons of steel and aluminum and all those different things, he has made not only West Michigan a better place, but the world as well.
Let me transition a little bit, Fred, to the Great American Outdoors Act. It looks like it's going to be clearing the House shortly.
Well, I sure hope so. I'm a co-sponsor. This is a Problem Solvers Caucus initiative. It's bipartisan. But, for a lot of us with our national parks, and of course we have one at Sleeping Bear Dunes a little bit north of here, and we got one down in Indiana and a few other places, Pictured Rocks, of course, in the UP. But, for those of us that over the years may have traveled to Yellowstone or Glacier, one of our great Shenandoahs, our national parks down in the Keys as well, it's troubling that when we want them preserved like they were. And when in recent times, Alaska too, the maintenance has really slipped. Maybe we haven't had the resources to make it as pristine as we'd like. What this bill does is it takes a percentage of the revenues from offshore drilling and really funnels it into maintenance of our national parks, so that they're going to be there for our kids and our grandkids and for generations to come, that we aren't going to have to worry about that. And so it's bipartisan, passed the Senate overwhelmingly. I want to say unanimously, but I'm not quite sure. But this is a bill that is going to land on the president's desk. I'm a co-sponsor. It's probably going to be up, I think, next week on the House floor. It makes the Land and Water Conservation Fund permanent. So again, we don't have to worry about stopgap funding and all those different things to really protect our nation's resources. That's what this bill does.
We're talking with Congressman Fred Upton, your bipartisan task force on police reform, another Problem Solvers issue, and it looks like that's moving forward as well.
Well, I hope so. This ought to be bipartisan. There were some issues in the House passed bill a few weeks ago. Now, I voted for it to move the bill forward, but I also noted that we had to fix the qualified immunity provision. Without a fix on this provision, it will be really difficult to recruit and retain law enforcement officers. That's got to change. I'm convinced that it will. We've had a number of discussions, our Problem Solvers Caucus, over the last 7 to 10 days. I believe that I'm hopeful that Tim Scott, former House colleague, leader in the Senate for sure, Republican from South Carolina, is going to be able to cobble together a bill that can move forward, that can pass in the Senate. I've spent a little time with Tim Scott on the phone as well. He's been a guest, a Zoom guest with us on Problem Solvers. He wants to fix this provision as well. And if they can get a bill done, we'll fix this provision and get it to the president, where I know that he will sign it. So it's important that we do some things. The body cams for our law enforcement, more training, making sure we have a national registry of officers that may have some blemishes in their record, so they can't transfer from one department to another and hide that past. A number of communities have already, and states, have banned chokeholds. When you look at no-knock warrants, again, that's a real threat. We need to make sure that the bar is set high in terms of incidents like that. So I think that we can get there. But we got to get there this month. Congress comes back into session next week. I suspect it will be in for 2 or 3 weeks, not only hopefully dealing with this, but also really dealing with the shortage of revenues for our states, cities, and counties. It's called the SMART Act. I think the Senate is going to move along those lines as well. Again, the Problem Solvers Caucus is very involved in the negotiations there. It's not going to be like the Pelosi passed bill, over $3 trillion that was partisan every step of the way. This will be a reasonable package that I think, again, will garner not only the president's support, but be bipartisan from start to finish.
He is Congressman Fred Upton. He joins us Tuesday mornings, talk about some of the issues of the day. And yes, we will set aside the 7:15 slot for you to chat with us on next Tuesday morning. And hopefully all will be well with your trip. Have a good week. We'll talk to you next Tuesday morning.
You bet. Stay safe.
Thank you very much. That is Congressman Fred Upton on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.